Hi, I'm Isabella, one of the co-founders of camelAI, and I'm going to walk you through a kind of overview of our web app. So the first thing is we are camelai.com. When you find our homepage, go ahead and click try free. You get 10 messages free per week. So since I'm an existing user, it's going to drop me in on this page, but for brand new users, you will end up on our connections page. We have lots of different databases, data warehouses, files, and are building out our direct app connections. If there's something that you would like us to connect to that you don't see here, let us know. We'd be happy to build it for you. So today I want to just walk through a couple things. So if you are to connect to database, it's important that you whitelist our IP address so that we can connect to your data. Um, Here are the two different ways for Postgres. And then file uploads is way simpler. You can drag and drop as many files as you'd like into the file upload. If you want to kind of combine files all together into a single database, then go ahead and do a multi-upload of CSVs. But if you want to keep them separate so you can talk to each file separately, you can upload them one at a time. But uploading them as a group is going to combine them into a unified data source. Cool. So I already have a Postgres setup of dummy data. So I'm going to go ahead and go over to the new chat section. I'm going to remove that CSV and I'll add our dummy plant shop data. So a couple important things to note. You can have as many data sources here as you'd like, and they do not need to be the same data source type. So here I have two CSVs and a Postgres database, but for our demo, I'll just be talking to the database. Okay, let me let you in on a bit of the secret sauce of camelAI. camelAI is a multi-agent system that is fine-tunable or configurable so that it can be bespoke for your schema and your business. But in order to do that, you must give it context. Let's go over to data sources and let's go into the settings of Plant Shop. So there are lots of different settings I encourage you to explore, but right now, I'm going to be talking about reference queries and knowledge base. The combination of reference queries and knowledge base are what we call memory. Knowledge base, this allows you to add any tribal knowledge that you would tell any type of new hire. I always call Camel, like a Harvard level SQL and Python capable analyst, but without any context to your information and your schema. If a person without any background information could figure something out about your schema or your data, then Camel can too. Through trial and error, through iterative loops, trying to query your database and get the answer. But if it's difficult or something that's non-obvious that a person can't figure out, then you would want to give it some background information here in the knowledge base. This knowledge base is also where you might want to add a description of the data so Camel knows who you are, what the business is, um, and what exactly it's looking at, right? So let's say you have a column that's named XXYZ123, but it really contains order information. Maybe eventually Camel will understand, through trial and error that that column contains order information. But this is where you would tell it, hey, XXYZZ123 contains order information. Knowledge base is also where you can kind of add other nuances. Like if you want branded colors only used in the graphs and visualizations it creates, this is where you can put those colors in. You can also tell it things like respond in Spanish, or when I say user summary, I want you to include the first name, last name, account owner, and all of their total orders for the last 2 years. So this is a place where you could kind of give your own preferences as well. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and save that. And then we'll go back down to reference queries. So reference queries are important because this is where you can give Camel a leg up. Rather than fuzzing your schema, right? Like I mentioned, it will do the trial and error method of figuring out what columns contain what information. But if you want to tell it ahead of time or give it, a jump start to the schema, you can put your favorite Scratch queries into our knowledge base or reference query library so that you can kind of configure and control Camel's first attempt, right? Um, so the reference query library is really important because this is how you can teach Camel what your schema kind of looks like and how you like answering specific questions. This is where you can upload your Scratch queries that you usually use. Um, and this is going to turn into a vectorized database so that Camel can access it. We use RAG against this vectorized database of reference queries. You can either upload them yourself or as time goes on, Camel will generate its own. Like I said before, Camel's, if it doesn't have any exact matches for a question that's been asked in its reference query library, then it's going to look for partial matches and then build SQL based off of the partial matches, or it will use, like I said, it will use the way you've written your queries kind of as inspiration, but it will start fuzzing your schema to understand, okay, what does it need to look for in order to answer the question. So the other thing is the AI generated queries. Camel is a multi-agent system, and one of the agents within that system is a thread grader. So Camel will review every thread and analyze the sentiment of the user to see if the user is satisfied. If you're asking more questions that indicate, hey, the last question I answered pretty well, and now these follow-on questions indicate like we're digging deeper, then Camel's going to probably give it a 5 out of 5. Also, the thumbs up and thumbs down for the responses really help us understand whether or not you're satisfied with the response. If a thread receives a grade of 5 out of 5, then the queries within that thread will be added into the query library. So Camel's constantly dynamically expanding its memory of your database. And this is why as you use it, it gets better and better. Same with the knowledge base. Not that it's dynamically growing, Camel doesn't add to the knowledge base by itself. It will in a future update, but if you're continuously adding to the knowledge base because you recognize or see where Camel might be getting stuck as it explains its analysis approach, then you can add to that knowledge base and Camel will continue to get better. Okay, so now let's navigate over to the new chat. Couple things to note here, the recommendations. This gets better the more that you ask questions. These are meant to be just like very much an inspiration so you can get started pretty quickly and start letting AI control your analysis, like take you down a rabbit hole that maybe you didn't think of. You could take a look at the models that we support here and you could toggle between them. We're continuously supporting any new models that are being released. You can turn off and on the graph generation right there. This is especially useful if you are using either our on-prem version, VPC version, or our SaaS offering, but with your own API key. That's just so you could save on token cost. Let's go ahead and ask a question. I guess that's important to repeat. So if you want to use your own LLM, we do have a SaaS offering, but bring your own LLM if you want to use Camel, but you'd rather just use your own, maybe AWS Bedrock, Claude, or whatever you might have. Okay, so the analysis streams in, but when it's finished answering, it collapses the analysis. This is turn offable. So if you do want this at an enterprise level, we offer it with the, we could take this out so that the users just see the answer and not all of the SQL and thoughts. But let's go ahead and take a look at the planning. So I recommend that the admins, the data team, whoever is going to be like the keeper of Camel, I recommend that you review the plans, especially in the beginning as you're just getting to know the platform so that you can understand what Camel is seeing and maybe what it's missing or not understanding. This is going to give you the biggest insight into where you can fill the gaps in the knowledge base and in the reference queries. We see here Camel searching its memory. Again, that's knowledge base and reference queries. And then it executes its plan by writing SQL and giving us a final result. We can go ahead and tell it to make a chart from this result. It's writing Python, so the tool calling will either be to Python or to SQL. And again, you could see Camel's kind of iterating on whatever the result of its previous action was. Okay, awesome. So with that result, we can actually take a look at the table, the code, and the query, and we can save this to a dashboard. We could also download the data as a CSV, download the plot as a PNG, expand the whole thing, and interact with the actual data set. Let's take a look at our dashboard. So the dashboard is interesting because it's always live so long as it's connected to a live data source. You can share this with your teammates or you can create a read-only link. You can also start a chat with just a single artifact, so it kind of has a jumping off point for the entire conversation. That's the meat and potatoes of the actual, I guess, chat with your data. The next thing I want to show you is the kind of admin console for our enterprise offering. Camel does support row level security and uh, role-based access controls. So for our role-based access controls, you can add different groups and you can configure them however you see fit. So let's say you only want the sales team to have access to the sales data, then you can go ahead and do that here by setting up the group and then managing the connections that those groups have access to, and then managing the users that are within each specific group. You can add users. You could take a look at the data sources. Again, the configurability of Camel to whatever you want it to look like is really great in that you can let your users add third-party data sources, or you can also turn that off. Like, let's say you just want your users looking at one view within your Snowflake data warehouse, and they're not allowed to upload or analyze Snowflake against any third-party data, then you can do that, or you can leave it on so that they can upload any CSVs or any data sources that they want to talk to in conjunction with the primary source. You can also kind of take a look at the dashboards that they're creating, regardless of their sharing status. And same with threads. So this is kind of a neat feature where you can monitor what people are asking and kind of how they're asking it. So you can make sure to do a little bit of quality control, especially in the beginning when you're just getting to know Camel. And then finally, you can configure the settings. Again, this is if you have decided to use your own LLM. Awesome. So that is camelAI. I hope that that helped you a little bit understand a little bit more, understand about how how you can fine tune our agent and just like the details of of how Camel works.